This human has not proven himself in true combat. He uses tricks and plants instead of honest weapons. How can our greatest warrior be bonded to someone who fights like a coward? Jake felt his stomach drop. He had hoped all the opposition was settled, but apparently some Krillians still doubted him. Zarathek stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger. You dare call my mate a coward? He has saved lives, defeated enemies, and shown courage in battle. Courage? Nekmur laughed mockingly. He hides behind plants and gases. A true warrior faces his enemies with blade and strength. Then you understand nothing about strength, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was High Command Veltar, the supreme leader of the Krillian Empire. He had arrived for the ceremony, but had not been expected to speak. Veltar was ancient even by Krillian standards. His armor was simple, but perfectly maintained. When he spoke, every warrior in the hall listened with complete attention. I have ruled this empire for 200 years, Veltar said. I have seen strength in many forms. The human Jake Miller shows a kind of strength we have forgotten. He walked slowly to the center of the platform. We Krillians are great warriors. We can conquer worlds and defeat any enemy in direct battle. But we have one weakness. We destroy more than we create. We take more than we give. The hall was completely silent now. No one had ever heard their supreme leader speak this way. This human creates instead of destroying. He heals instead of harming. He solves problems with his mind instead of his weapons. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths we need to learn. Veltar looked directly at War Captain Nekmur. You think using intelligence instead of force is cowardly. Then you are a fool. The greatest victory is winning without fighting. The greatest strength is making your enemies into allies. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. The most powerful Krillian in the galaxy was defending him. Furthermore, Veltar continued, this bonding represents something new. A partnership between two different kinds of strength. If we can learn from humans, and they can learn from us, both our peoples will become greater than either could be alone. He turned to address the entire hall. Therefore, I not only approve this bonding, I declare it the foundation of a new alliance between the Krillian Empire and the human worlds. Let us share knowledge, technology, and protection. Let us grow stronger together. The cheering that followed was deafening. Even War Captain Nekmur seemed convinced by his supreme leader's words. Elder Kithara completed the ceremony by placing crowns of woven metal on both Jake's and Zarathak's heads. The crowns were symbols of their new status as bonded partners and representatives of the alliance. It is done, the elder announced. Let the celebration begin. The party that followed lasted for 2 days. Jake met aliens from across the galaxy, all curious about the human who had married their most famous warrior. Many seemed surprised by how normal and friendly he was. On the second evening, Jake found himself alone with Zarathek on the ship's observation deck. Through the huge windows, they could see the stars and the lights of the human space station in the distance. Do you regret drinking the Velthaner? Zarathek asked. Jake thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the challenges, the battles, and finally, this amazing celebration. No, he said honestly. I was terrified at first, but now I think it was the best mistake I ever made. It was not a mistake, Zarathek said quietly. I have been thinking about this. When I saw you drink the Velthaner, I could have stopped you. I could have explained what it meant before you finished. Why didn't you? Because something inside me wanted to see what would happen. You were so different from any male I had met. You were gentle with your plants, kind to your friends, dedicated to your work. I was curious. Jake stared at her. You let me propose to you on purpose? Perhaps. Or perhaps fate guided both our actions that day. They stood together and comfortable. Silence, watching the stars. Jake thought about his future. Tomorrow, they would return to the space station to gather his things. Then they would travel together on Krillian ships, exploring new worlds and building the alliance between their peoples. "I have a confession," Jake said. "I'm still scared. Sometimes, you're so strong and famous. What if I disappoint you?" Zarathek's 4 arms wrapped around him gently. "You have already proven your worth to me many times over. You think differently than any Krillian, and that makes you valuable. Our differences make us stronger together. What happens now?" "Now we begin the real adventure. We will visit human colonies and Krillian worlds. We will show both peoples that cooperation is possible. We will face new challenges and solve them. Together." Jake smiled. "That sounds wonderful." "And perhaps," Zarathek added with what might have been a blush, "in time we will have children. Imagine what amazing beings they will be, with human creativity and Krillian strength." Jake had not thought about children yet, but the idea was exciting rather than scary. Their children would grow up knowing both cultures, comfortable with both humans and Krillians. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the new ship Unity's Promise. It was a joint human-Krillian vessel, crewed by both species and designed using the best technology from both civilizations. Jake's botanical laboratory took up an entire deck of the ship. He had created plants that could grow in any environment, providing food and medicine for both humans and Krillians. His work had already saved 3 colonies from famine. Zarathak commanded the ship's security forces, which included both human engineers and Krillian warriors. Her tactical brilliance combined with human technology had made them one of the most effective exploration teams in the galaxy. "Approaching the Andorian system," the helmsman reported. "Sensors show 3 habitable planets. Take us in slowly," Zarathak ordered. "We will scan for life signs and mineral resources." Jake watched his wife work with pride. She had adapted to working with humans, just as he had learned to understand Krillian culture. Their partnership had become the model for dozens of other joint missions. "Jake," Captain Brooks called from the communication station. "We're receiving a message from Earth Command. They want to know if you're ready for the next phase of the project." The next phase was exciting. Jake and Zarathak would be establishing the first permanent human Krillian colony on a world called New Harmony. It would be a place where both species could live and work together, creating something entirely new. "Tell them we're ready, Jake," said Dot as the Unity's Promise flew toward the unknown planets ahead. Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. He had started as a simple plant grower on a space station. Now he was an ambassador, explorer, and bridge between 2 great civilizations, all because he had been thirsty one day and drunk from the wrong bowl. He looked at Zarathak, who was studying star charts with fierce concentration. Her 4 hands moved efficiently across the controls while she planned their approach to the new system. She was still the galaxy's fiercest warrior, but she was also his partner, his friend, and his love. Together, they had proven that the most unlikely partnerships could create the most amazing results. The future stretched ahead of them, full of new worlds to explore, new problems to solve, and new adventures to share. Jake could hardly wait to see what they would discover together. Behind them, the alliance between humans and Krillians grew stronger every day. Ships traveled between their worlds, carrying trade goods, knowledge, and friendship. The partnership that had begun with one accidental sip of alien liquid had changed the galaxy forever. And Jake Miller, the man who had asked for water and received a warrior's heart, was exactly where he belonged. Good. Fear keeps you alive in battle, but you acted despite the fear. That is true courage. Elder Kithara approached them. The Vex retreat has been confirmed. The station is secure. What happens now? Jake asked. Now we plan the bonding. Ceremony, the elder said. You have proven yourself in battle. The last requirement has been met. Jake looked up at Zarathek. Are you sure about this? Really sure? I am sure, she said. You fight differently than any warrior I have known. You use your mind where others use strength. You protect by creating instead of destroying. These are valuable skills. But I'm still just a plant grower from a small space station. No, Zarathek said firmly. You are my chosen mate. That makes you important in the eyes of all Krillians. Captain Brooks came over with a big smile on his face. The Krillian fleet is sending a message of congratulations. Apparently, you two working together to defeat the Vex has impressed a lot of people. We work well together, Zarathek agreed. Jake thinks of solutions I would never consider. I can protect him while he implements those solutions. Jake realized something. He was not afraid anymore. The idea of being married to Zarathek still seemed impossible, but it also felt right somehow. They were very different, but those differences made them stronger together. When is the bonding ceremony? He asked. 3 days, Elder Githara said. It will take place on the Krillian flagship. Representatives from across the galaxy will attend. Jake swallowed nervously. Representatives from across the galaxy? Our marriage is historic, Zarathek explained. The first union between a human and a Krillian. It will be remembered for generations. No pressure, Jake said weakly. Zarathek laughed. It was the first time Jake had heard her laugh. The sound was surprisingly warm and musical. Do not worry, my clever mate. I will make sure everything goes smoothly. As they walked out of the damaged command center together, Jake realized his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. But for the first time since drinking that sacred liquid, he was looking forward to seeing what would happen next. The Krillian flagship. Conquest's Edge was the largest ship Jake had ever seen. It was 10 times bigger than the space station, and filled with thousands of warriors from across the galaxy. Jake felt very small as he walked through its corridors. The bonding ceremony was tomorrow. Jake had spent the last 3 days learning Krillian customs and trying not to panic. Captain Brooks, Lisa, and Dr. Foster had come with him to represent humanity at the historic event. How are you feeling? Lisa asked as they sat in the guest quarters. Terrified, Jake admitted. What if I mess up the ceremony? What if I say the wrong words? Zarathek will help you, Dr. Foster said. She's been very patient teaching you the traditional phrases. Jake had been amazed by how gentle Zarathek could be when she was not fighting. She had spent hours showing him the proper way to hold the ceremonial weapons and how to speak the ancient bonding words. The important thing, Captain Brooks said, is that this marriage could change everything for humanity. The Krillians are offering us a formal alliance. Trade agreements, shared technology, protection from enemies like the Vex. All because I got thirsty, Jake said with a shake of his head. A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Zarathek entered the room. She wore ceremonial robes that sparkled with threads of gold and silver. Even in formal dress, she looked impressive and dangerous. How are my human friends? She asked. Her English had improved greatly over the past few days. Nervous, Lisa said honestly. That is normal. This ceremony is important for both our peoples. Zarathek sat down next to Jake, but Jake need not worry. I will make sure everything goes correctly. What if some of your people still think this is a bad idea? Jake asked. Some do, Zarathek admitted. They believe humans are too weak to be worthy allies. Tomorrow we will prove them wrong. The next morning, Jake put on his ceremonial outfit. It was a mixture of human formal wear and Krillian warrior decorations. He felt ridiculous, but Zarathek had insisted he should honor both cultures in his appearance. The ceremony hall was enormous. Hundreds of Krillian warriors filled the viewing areas. Ambassadors from a dozen alien species had come to witness the historic event. Jake saw creatures he had never imagined could exist. In the center of the hall was a raised platform with two circles marked in glowing stones. Elder Kithara stood between them, holding an ancient staff covered in carved symbols. "This is it," Captain Brooks whispered. "You ready?" "No," Jake said. "But let's do it anyway." Jake walked to his circle while Zarathak walked to hers. She wore full battle armor that had been polished until it gleamed like a mirror. In her 4 hands, she carried the traditional weapons of a Krillian warrior. Elder Kithara began speaking in the ancient Krillian language. His voice echoed through the great hall. Jake understood some of the words now. The elder was telling the story of how warriors chose their mates in the old days. Then it was time for Jake to speak. He had memorized the human part of the ceremony, but his mouth felt dry with nervousness. "I, Jake Miller of Earth, choose Zarathak of the Krillian Empire as my life partner," he said in both English and Krillian. "I promise to honor her strength, protect her interests, and stand by her side through all battles." Zarathak's response was much longer and more complex. She spoke about accepting Jake's different kind of strength and promising to learn from his ways of solving problems. When she finished, the hall was completely silent. Elder Kithara raised his staff. "By the ancient laws and the approval of both peoples, I declare these two bonded for life. Let no enemy divide them. Let no weakness defeat them. Let their partnership bring strength to all who follow them." The hall erupted in cheers and roars. Warriors clashed their weapons together in a traditional sign of approval. Even the alien ambassadors seemed impressed by the ceremony. But then something unexpected happened. A group of Krillian warriors stood up in the viewing area. Their leader was a large male covered in scars from many battles. "I object to this bonding," he announced loudly. The hall fell silent again. Elder Kithara looked surprised and angry. "On what grounds do you object, War Captain Ekmer?" the elder asked. "But if people die because of me, people die in war," Elder Kithara said firmly. "The Vex have been our enemies for centuries. This fight was coming whether you existed or not." Captain Brooks was studying the tactical display. "We need to evacuate the civilian areas and prepare for boarding parties. They'll try to take the station instead of destroying it." "I have an idea," Jake said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "The station's life support system is connected to my plant. Rooms. What if we could use that somehow?" "How?" Captain Brooks asked. Jake thought quickly. "Some plants make poisonous gas when they're threatened. Others make chemicals that can blind attackers or make them sick. If I can get to the plant rooms during the attack, maybe I can create some surprises for the boarding parties." Zarethek looked interested. "You would fight using plants?" "It's better than having no weapons at all." "It could work," Dr. Foster said. "Jake knows those plant systems better than anyone." Elder Kithara nodded. "A cunning plan. Very un-Krillian, but effective." The first Vex boarding pods hit the station 10 minutes later. Jake was already in Plant Room 3 with Zarathak beside him. Through the security cameras, they could see insect-like Vex soldiers cutting through the hull. "Remember," Jake told Zarathak, "when I release the gas, don't breathe it. It will hurt you too." "I trust you," she said simply. Jake had spent the last 10 minutes preparing his plants. He had collected the most dangerous ones and connected them to the air circulation system. With the push of a button, he could send plant toxins through any section of the station. The first group of Vex soldiers entered the station through the main airlock. Jake watched them on the security screen. They moved like hunters, checking every corner carefully. When they reached the central corridor, Jake activated his first trap. Gas from the sleep vine plants began flowing through the air vents. The Vex soldiers started moving more slowly. Some fell down completely. "Impressive," Zarathek said. "Your plants are more dangerous than they look." The second group of Vex came. Through the cargo bay, Jake released a different gas this time. It came from plants that usually kept insects away from Earth crops. The Vex soldiers began coughing and rubbing their eyes. Their vision was clouded, and they stumbled around blindly. But more Vex kept coming. Jake was running out of plant weapons, and some of the enemies had breathing masks that protected them from the gas. "We need to move," Zarathak said. "There." Getting closer to this section, Jake grabbed his emergency plant kit. It contained samples of his most useful plants. "Where do we go?" "The command center. We make our final stand there." They ran through the station corridors. Behind them, Jake could hear Vex soldiers shouting in their alien language. Some were still affected by the plant toxins, but others were recovering. When they reached the command center, Captain Brooks and the others were fighting hard. The Krillian warriors were incredibly skilled, but they were outnumbered. Several humans were wounded. "Jake," Lisa called out, "can you do something about the ones coming through Section 5? Jake looked at the security screens. A large group of Vex soldiers was cutting through the door to Section 5. That section had the main computer systems. If the Vex took it, they could control the whole station. "I have one more idea," Jake said, "but it's dangerous." "Do it," Captain Brooks ordered. Jake ran to the environmental controls. Section 5 had a large tank of liquid nitrogen used for cooling the computers. If he could rupture that tank and mix it with his glowing fungus plants, he might be able to create a blinding, freezing cloud. "Zarathek, I need you to throw this at the nitrogen tank when I tell you." He handed her a container of spores from his brightest glowing plants. "What will happen?" "Hopefully, a very cold, very bright explosion." Jake hacked into the environmental system and overloaded the cooling pipes in Section 5. Pressure began building in the nitrogen tank. "Now!" he shouted. Zarathak's 4 arms gave her incredible throwing strength. The container of spores flew through the air vents and hit the nitrogen tank just as it ruptured. The explosion was amazing. Freezing gas mixed with glowing plant spores created a brilliant icy cloud that filled the entire section. The Vex soldiers were blinded, frozen, and completely confused. "That's my human," Zarathek said proudly. But the fight was not over. The Vex commander had brought more soldiers than expected. Just when it looked like the defenders might win, a new group of enemies broke through the main doors of the command center. The Vex commander itself led this group. It was twice the size of its soldiers, with armor that gleamed like black metal and weapons that crackled with energy. "So," the commander hissed, looking at Jake, "this is the weak human that thinks he can marry a Krillian warrior. You are smaller than I expected." Zarathek stepped between Jake and the commander. "If you want him, you must go through me." "Gladly," the commander said. "Defeating you will make this victory even sweeter." The 2 warriors fought in the center of the command room. Zarathak's 4 arms moved like lightning, but the Vex commander was fast too. Its claws left sparks when they hit her armor. Jake watched in terror as they battled. Zarathak was skilled, but the commander was larger and had longer reach. Slowly, she was being pushed back. Then Jake noticed something. The commander kept turning its back to the environmental controls where Jake was standing. If Jake could reach the emergency controls, he might be able to help, but to get there, he would have to run right through the middle of the fight. Jake looked around desperately. Then he saw it, the emergency fire suppression system. The station had special foam that could put out any kind of fire. It was slippery and would make fighting harder. Jake crawled under a control panel and reached the fire suppression controls. When the Vex commander made its next attack, Jake activated the foam system. White foam shot out of nozzles in the ceiling. Both fighters were suddenly standing in ankle-deep slippery foam. The commander lost its balance for just a moment. That moment was enough. Zarathak's blade found the weak spot in the commander's armor. The great Vex warrior fell to the ground and did not get up. The remaining Vex soldiers saw their leader defeated and began retreating to their ships. The battle was over. Jake sat down hard on the floor. His hands were shaking from fear and excitement. Around him, people were cheering and treating the wounded. Zarathak walked over to him. Her armor was dented and scratched, but she was smiling. "You fought well," she said. "Not with weapons, but with cleverness. You helped me defeat an enemy. I might not have beaten alone." "I was terrified the whole time," Jake admitted. After an hour of work, the machine hummed to life. The Krillians in the audience made sounds of approval. "Impressive," Elder Kithara said. "You solved that faster than most Krillian engineers." The final test was the strangest. Jake was brought to a room full of sick Krillian children. They had some kind of disease that made them weak and feverish. "Can you heal them?" Elder Kithara asked. Jake looked at the children. They reminded him of wilted plants. "I'm not a doctor. I work with plants, not people. Try anyway." Jake knelt down next to one of the children. Her skin was burning hot with fever. He had seen similar symptoms in plants that had been infected with certain viruses. "Dr. Foster," Jake called out, "do you have any samples of my medicinal plants?" Dr. Foster brought him a small kit of plant extracts that Jake had made for emergencies. Jake found the one he was looking for. It was made from a vine that grew. On Earth, the vine produced a natural medicine that reduced fevers. "This might help," Jake said. "But I need to test it on myself first to make sure it's safe for Krillians." "No," Zarathak said firmly. "You are still sick from yesterday. It could kill you. Then let me test it on a small amount of skin first." Jake put a tiny drop of the plant extract on his arm. Nothing bad happened. He waited 10 minutes, then tried a slightly larger amount. Still nothing. "It seems safe," he said. "But I should start with just a little bit." Elder Kithara nodded. "Proceed." Jake gave each child a small dose of the medicine. Within an hour, their fevers began to drop. By the end of the day, they were sitting up and asking for food. The adult Krillians, who had been caring for the children, looked amazed. "How did you know what to do?" one asked. "Plants get sick too," Jake explained. "I've learned to recognize the signs and find natural cures. People and plants are not so different." Elder Kithara called for the final judgment. All the important Krillians gathered in the arena. Jake stood in the center, tired and sore, but proud of what he had accomplished. "Jake Miller has completed the worthiness trials," the elder announced. "He failed the combat test, but passed the intelligence tests. Most importantly, he showed the ability to heal and protect others." The crowd of Krillians buzzed with conversation. Some seemed impressed. Others still looked doubtful. However, Elder Kithara continued, "There is one more test. The final decision belongs to Zarathak herself. Will she accept this human as her mate?" All eyes turned to Zarathak. She stepped forward and looked down at Jake. For a long moment, she said nothing. "You are weak in body," she said finally, "but strong in mind. You cannot fight like a Krillian warrior, but you heal like a Krillian healer. You solve problems with thought instead of violence." Jake held his breath. "I have fought many battles," Zarathak continued. "I have conquered worlds and defeated great enemies. But I have never met someone who fights to save lives instead of take them." She reached out with one of her 4 hands and gently touched Jake's face. "I accept you, Jake Miller. You are worthy to be my mate." The arena erupted in cheers and roars. Some Krillians seemed happy. Others just seemed surprised. But they all acknowledged the decision. Jake felt a mixture of relief, joy, and terror. He had passed the tests. But now he was really engaged, the galaxy's most dangerous warrior. As the crowd dispersed, Zarathek stayed beside him. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. "I'm nothing like a Krillian male." "No," Zarathek agreed. "You are something new. Something I have never seen before. That makes you ... interesting." Jake looked up at her towering form. "I hope I don't disappoint." "You. If you do, I will tell you," she said with what might have been a smile. Krillians are very direct about such things. For the first time since drinking that strange liquid, Jake felt like maybe this crazy situation might actually work out. Had no idea how wrong he was about to be. 3 days after the worthiness trials, everything changed. Jake was in his plant room, teaching Zarathak about different types of vegetables. When the alarm started screaming, Captain Brooks' voice came over the speakers. "All hands to emergency stations. Unknown ships approaching fast." Jake and Zarathak ran to the main command center. The viewing screen showed 5 large warships moving toward the station. They were sleek and black, with strange energy weapons pointing forward. "Who are they?" Jake asked. "Hegemony of Vex," Zarathek said. Her voice was full of anger. "Our oldest enemies." Ambassador Nexvalu was already in the command center with Elder Kithara. "They must have learned about the betrothal," he said. "They see it as a chance to humiliate us." "What do they want?" Captain Brooks asked. "To prove Krillian weakness," Elder Kithara explained. "If they can capture or kill the human who is betrothed to our greatest warrior, they can claim we have grown soft." The lead Vex ship opened communications. The alien that appeared on screen looked like a giant insect with too many eyes and sharp claws for hands. "Krillians," the Vex commander hissed. "We have come for the human who dares to marry your warrior. Give him to us, and we will leave peacefully." "Never," Zarathek growled. She stepped in front of Jake protectively. "Then we will take him by force. Your mighty warrior cannot protect one weak human forever." The communication ended. The Vex ships began moving closer to the station. "How long until they reach us?" Captain Brooks asked. 20 minutes, Lisa said from her position at the sensor. "Controls." Elder Kithara turned to Captain Brooks. "Your weapons are not strong enough to stop them. We have 2 Krillian ships here, but they have 5. This will be a difficult fight." Jake felt sick. This was all his fault. People were going to die because he had drunk that stupid liquid. "Maybe I should surrender," he said quietly. "If I go with them, everyone else will be safe." "No," Zarathek said loudly. "You are my betrothed. I will not let them take you." Jake woke up feeling terrible. His body hurt from the radiation exposure. His throat was sore from breathing acid fumes. But today was the day of the worthiness trials. He could not back down now. Dr. Foster checked him over in the medical bay. "You should be resting for at least a week," she said. "Your body took a lot of damage yesterday. I can't rest. The trials start in 2 hours. Jake, you could seriously hurt yourself. The Krillians will understand if you need more time to recover." Jake shook his head. "I've already caused enough problems. I need to do this now." Captain Brooks came into the medical bay with Lisa. They both looked worried. "The Krillians have set up their testing area in the main cargo bay," Captain Brooks said. "Half their fleet is watching on video screens. This is a big deal for them." "No pressure," Jake said sarcastically. Lisa sat down next to him. "Jake, you don't have to be a Krillian warrior to pass these tests. Just be yourself. Show them what makes humans special. What if being human isn't enough? Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Captain Brooks said. But right now, you need to focus on doing your best. Jake got dressed slowly. His hands were shaking, but not from being sick. He was scared. He had never been so scared in his life. When he entered the cargo bay, he gasped. The Krillians had transformed it into an arena. Strange symbols covered the walls. Weapon racks lined the sides. In the center was a large circle marked with glowing stones. Dozens of Krillians filled the viewing areas. They were all bigger and stronger looking than Jake. Their yellow eyes followed his every move. Some made growling sounds that might have been comments. None sounded friendly. Zarathek stood in the center of the arena. She wore full ceremonial armor that gleamed like black metal. Her 4 arms held different weapons. She looked like a goddess of war. Elder Kithara walked to the center of the circle. Jake Miller of the humans, you come before us to prove your worth as a mate to our greatest warrior. Do you accept the challenge? I accept, Jake said. His voice cracked a little, but he got the words out. The first trial is combat. You must show you can protect your mate in battle. A young Krillian warrior stepped into the circle. He was smaller than Zarathek, but still twice Jake's size. He carried a staff weapon that crackled with energy. I am Torvik. I will be your opponent. Do not worry, human. I will try not to kill you. Jake had never used an alien weapon before. Elder Kithara handed him a staff similar to Torvik's, but it felt heavy and awkward in his hands. Begin. The elder shouted .Tor single quotes VEK, attacked immediately. His staff moved so fast, Jake could barely see it. Jake jumped back and raised his own weapon to block. The impact sent shockwaves up his arms. The Krillian pressed his attack. Jake could only defend himself, backing up around the circle. Every blow made his arms hurt more. He was getting tired quickly. Fight back, little human. Torvik called out, show some spirit. Jake tried to swing his staff at Torvik, but the alien easily blocked it and knocked Jake to the ground. The watching Krillians made disappointed sounds. Jake rolled away as Torvik's staff hit the floor where his head had been. He scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. He was going to lose. He knew it, and everyone watching knew it. But Jake noticed something. Every time Torvik attacked, he followed the same pattern. Right swing, left swing, overhead strike. It was like a dance. Jake had worked with patterns his whole life. Plant growth patterns, water flow patterns, machine operation patterns. Maybe fighting had patterns too. The next time Torvik came at him, Jake was ready. Instead of just blocking, he moved to the side. Torvik's staff whistled past his ear. Better, Torvik said, sounding pleased. Jake kept moving, learning the rhythm of the fight. He could not win with strength, but maybe he could win with timing. When Torvik made his overhead strike, Jake was not there anymore. The crowd of Krillians began to pay more attention. Jake was not defeating Torvik, but he was not losing as badly as expected. Then Torvik changed his pattern. His next attack was different, faster. Jake tried to dodge, but was not quick enough. The staff hit him in the ribs and sent him flying across the circle. Jake hit the ground hard. His vision went black for a moment. When it cleared, Torvik was standing over him with his staff raised for the final blow. Yield, human. You fought with more skill than expected. Jake looked up at the young warrior. Then he looked at Zarathek. She was watching with an expression he could not read. I yield, Jake said quietly. Torvik helped him to his feet. You have courage, even if you lack strength. That is something. Elder Kithara announced the result to the crowd. The human has failed the combat trial, but showed learning ability and bravery. The second trial will begin after he recovers. Jake sat on a bench while Dr. Foster checked his injuries. His ribs were bruised, but not broken. He felt like a complete failure. Zarathik approached him. "You fought differently than expected." "I lost," Jake said. "Yes, but you adapted during a fight. Most warriors stick to one style. You changed yours when it was not working. Is that good or bad?" "It is." "Interesting." The second trial was different. Instead of fighting, Jake had to solve a series of puzzles and challenges. The Krillians wanted to test his mind, not just his body. The first puzzle was a maze of light beams. Jake had to get from one side to the other without touching any of the beams. If he touched one, alarms would sound and he would have to start. Jake studied the pattern of the lights. They moved in a sequence, creating openings at regular intervals. It was like timing the watering cycles for his plants. Everything had a rhythm. He waited for the right moment, then moved quickly through the gaps. The watching Krillians muttered in surprise as he completed the maze on his first try. The second puzzle was harder. Jake had to repair a broken machine using only basic tools. The machine was Krillian technology he had never seen before. But machines were machines no matter who built them. Jake examined the broken parts carefully. He could see where pieces were supposed to connect. It was like fixing the water recycling system on the station, working slowly and carefully. Jake began putting the machine back together. Some parts were different from human technology, but the basic principles were the same. Energy flowed from here to there. Moving parts needed to be aligned properly. Jake could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about the giant alien warrior and what he had done. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those glowing yellow eyes staring at him. The next morning, Captain Brooks called a meeting. All the important humans on the station came to the conference room. Jake sat at the big table feeling sick to his stomach. "We have a serious problem," Captain Brooks said. "The Krillian elders want to meet with us today. They need to decide what to do about Jake's situation." Dr. Amy Foster opened her computer files. She was the station's expert on alien cultures. "I've been studying Krillian society all night. What Jake did is very serious to them." "How serious?" Lisa asked. "Marriage is sacred to the Krillians. Once two people are betrothed, they cannot break it without great shame. If we refuse the marriage, they will think we are insulting their most honored warrior. That could mean war." Jake put his head in his hands. "This is all my fault. I just wanted some water." "The Krillians are a warrior culture," Dr. Foster continued. "They respect strength and honor above everything else. Their women are the fighters. The men usually stay home and take care of children." "So Zarathak is like their top soldier?" Captain Brooks asked. "More than that. She's a legend. She has conquered 17 star systems. No one has ever defeated her in battle. She has never shown interest in marriage before." Jake groaned. "Of course I had to accidentally propose to their most dangerous warrior." "There's more," Dr. Foster said. "In Krillian culture, a male must prove he is worthy of his warrior mate. If Jake can't prove his worth, the marriage won't happen. But refusing to try would still be a huge insult." "What kind of tests?" Jake asked nervously. "Usually fighting, combat trials, tests of strength and courage." Jake was quiet for a long moment. He was not a fighter. He had never even been in a real fight. He grew plants and fixed machines. How could he prove himself to a race of warriors? A loud knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened and 3 Krillians entered. One was very old and walked with a staff. Another was medium-sized and wore fancy robes. The third was Zara THAK. In the daylight, she looked even more impressive. Her red and black skin gleamed like polished armor. Her 4 arms moved with perfect control. When she walked, she made no sound despite her size. The old Krillian spoke first. I am Elder Kithara, keeper of the ancient laws. We have come to speak with the human Jake Miller. Jake stood up on shaky legs. That's me. Elder Kithara studied him carefully. You are very small and weak-looking. Why did you drink the Velfanner of our greatest warrior? I didn't know what it was. I thought it was water. I was very thirsty. The elder's eyes narrowed. Ignorance is not an excuse, but the deed is done. The sacred laws must be followed. The Krillian in robes stepped forward. I am Ambassador Nex Valoom. We must decide if this bond can stand. You are not Krillian. You do not understand our ways. I can learn, Jake said quickly. I don't want to cause trouble between our people. Zarathik spoke for the first time. He works with growing things. He provides food for his tribe. That shows some worth. The ambassador looked surprised. You have spoken with him? Briefly. He tends the green growing things. It is ... unusual work for a male. Elder Kithara tapped his staff on the floor. For the bond to be valid, the male must prove his worth to the female. Can this small human do the trials of strength? Everyone looked at Jake. He was 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed maybe 160 pounds. Zarathak was 7 feet tall and probably weighed 300 pounds of pure muscle. I'll try, Jake said. I don't want to dishonor anyone. Zarathak tilted her head. You would face the trials, knowing you might fail? Yes, it's my fault. This happened. I should take responsibility. Something changed in Zarathik's expression. Jake could not tell what she was thinking, but she looked less angry than before. Elder Kithara nodded slowly. Very well. We will begin the worthiness trials tomorrow. But first, the female must decide if she accepts this human as a potential mate. All eyes turned to Zarathek. She stood very still for a long time. Then she looked directly at Jake. I will observe him today. I will decide tonight if he is worth testing. The Krillians left as suddenly as they had come. Jake slumped back into his chair. Well, Captain Brooks said, that could have gone worse. How? Jake asked. They could have killed you immediately. For the rest of the day, Jake tried to do his normal work. But everywhere he went, he saw Zarathek watching him. She followed him around the station like a silent shadow. When Jake worked in the plant room, she stood in the doorway. When he ate lunch, she sat at the next table. When he fixed a broken water pipe, she watched from the hallway. At first, it made Jake very nervous. But after a few hours, he got used to her being there. He even started explaining what he was doing. These tomato plants are sick, he told her while checking the leaves. See how they're turning yellow? That means they're not getting enough nutrients. Zarathek stepped closer to look. You can heal growing things? Sometimes. Plants are like people. They need the right food, water, and care to stay healthy. And you provide this care? Yes. If I don't take care of them, they die. Then there's no food for anyone. Zarathak watched as Jake gently adjusted the water tubes and added plant food to the soil. She seemed fascinated by how carefully he handled everything. On my world, she said quietly, warriors take what they need. We conquer and claim resources. That works too, Jake said. But I like helping things grow instead of taking them. Even when they give you nothing in return? Jake smiled a little. They do give me something. Food for my friends. And I like watching them grow from tiny seeds into big, healthy plants. Zarathik was quiet for a long time. This is different thinking. Later that day, alarms started going off. A section of the station had lost power. The life support systems were failing. People could die if the problem was not fixed quickly. Captain Brooks gathered everyone in the main corridor. We have a major emergency. The power core in Section 7 is overloading. We need to evacuate that area. What about the people trapped inside? Lisa asked. The doors are jammed. We can't get them out. Jake thought quickly. Section 7 was where they stored the emergency supplies. But it was also where he kept his special plants. Some of them made natural chemicals that could help people. I might be able to help, Jake said. How? Captain Brooks asked. I have plants that make a chemical that can dissolve metal. If I can get to them, maybe I can melt through the jammed doors. That section is full of dangerous radiation now. You could die. Jake looked around at all the worried faces. 3 Krillian warriors were trapped in Section 7, along with 2 humans. If he did nothing, they would all die. I have to try. Before anyone could stop him, Jake ran toward Section 7. Behind him, he heard Captain Brooks shouting for him to come back. The corridor leading to Section 7 was dark and full of smoke. Jake's radiation detector was beeping loudly. He ignored it and kept running. When he reached his plant storage room, he quickly gathered the plants he needed. The acid-producing vines were in heavy pots. They were hard to carry, but Jake managed to drag them to the jammed door. He squeezed the plants until they released their acid. The chemical hissed and bubbled as it ate through the metal door frame. Slowly, the door began to weaken. Stand back. Jake shouted through the door. I'm melting the lock. The acid worked faster than he had hoped. Soon there was a hole big enough for people to crawl through. The trapped humans and Krillians began climbing out. The last person out was one of the Krillian warriors. He was injured and could barely move. Jake helped pull him through the hole, even though the acid fumes were making Jake sick. Why did you help me? The Krillian asked. I am not your tribe. You needed help, Jake said simply. That's enough. By the time they got back to the main corridor, Jake was barely conscious. The radiation and acid fumes had made him very sick. Dr. Foster immediately took him to the medical bay. As Jake lay on the medical bed, he saw Zarathek standing nearby. She had watched everything. Her yellow eyes looked different now. Less cold. Almost impressed. You risked your life for others, she said. Even for Krillians you barely know. Anyone would have done the same thing, Jake said weakly. No, Zarathek said firmly. Many would not. This shows courage of a different kind. Elder Kithara appeared beside her. I have made my decision. About the worthiness trials, he announced. Jake tried to sit up. And they will begin tomorrow. But first, I have a question for you, human Jake Miller. Why did you save our warriors? You gain nothing from their survival. Jake thought about the question. Because they're people. Living beings. I don't want anyone to die if I can prevent it. The elder nodded slowly. Interesting. On our world, one shows strength by defeating enemies. You show strength by protecting others, even strangers. Is that ... wrong? Not wrong. Different. Perhaps ... useful? Zarathek stepped forward. I have decided. I will accept this human for the worthiness. Trials. He has shown courage today. Now we will see if he can show strength tomorrow. As the Krillians left, Jake closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would have to prove himself worthy of the galaxy's fiercest warrior. He had no idea how he was going to do. But for the first time since drinking that strange liquid, he felt like maybe he had a chance. Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his face as he worked in the plant room. The lights above him were too bright and too hot. His water bottle was empty again. He had been working for 6 hours straight, checking every plant on the space station. The space station was called New Horizon. It floated around a small moon far from Earth. Jake was a plant expert. His job was to grow food for everyone on the station. But today was different. Today, alien visitors were coming. The aliens were called Krillians. They were warriors from across the galaxy. Nobody had met them before. The human leaders were scared but excited. This was the first time humans would talk to this alien race. Jake did not care much about the aliens. He had plants to take care of. The food systems were broken again. If he did not fix them soon, everyone would go hungry. The aliens would think humans were weak and stupid. His throat felt like sand. He needed water badly. The recycling machine that cleaned their water had stopped working that morning. Captain Brooks told everyone to save water until they could fix it. But Jake was so thirsty he could barely think. He heard loud voices from the meeting room down the hall. The alien visitors had arrived an hour ago. Jake had seen them through the window. They were huge and scary looking. Some had 4 arms. Others had skin that looked like armor. The biggest one was a female warrior. She was taller than any human Jake had ever seen. Jake tried to focus on his work. The tomato plants were dying. The water tubes were clogged. He needed to fix them, or there would be no fresh food for weeks. But his hands shook from being so thirsty. He looked around the plant room. There was no water anywhere. The emergency water was locked up. Only Captain Brooks had the key. Jake did not want to bother the captain during the important alien meeting. And Jake remembered something. Earlier that day, he had seen the aliens setting up their things in the guest rooms. Maybe they had water he could borrow. Just a little bit. They would not mind, right? Jake walked down the quiet hallway. Most people were in the meeting room, or staying in their rooms. The aliens had been given the best guest quarters on the station. Jake found their door. It was open. He looked inside. The room was strange. The aliens had put up colorful banners on the walls. Strange symbols were everywhere. In the center of the room was a small table. On the table sat a beautiful bowl made of blue crystal. The bowl was full of clear liquid. It looked like water. It even smelled like water. Jake's throat hurt so much he could barely swallow. Just one drink. That was all he needed. Jake looked around. No aliens were in the room. They were all in the big meeting. He stepped inside quietly. The bowl was right there. The liquid was so clear and clean looking. He picked up the bowl with both hands. It was heavier than he thought. The liquid moved slowly, like it was thicker than water. But Jake was too thirsty to care. He lifted the bowl to his lips and drank. Taste was strange. It was sweet and warm. It made his whole body feel tingly. It was definitely not water, but it helped his thirst. Jake drank half the bowl before he stopped. "What have you done?" The voice was deep and scary. Jake turned around fast. The biggest alien warrior stood in the doorway. She was the female he had seen earlier. Up close, she was even more frightening. She was 7 feet tall. Her skin was dark red with black spots. 4 strong arms hung at her sides. Her face had sharp teeth and glowing yellow eyes. Bony armor covered her shoulders and chest. She looked like she could break Jake in half without trying. Jake dropped the bowl. It hit the floor, but did not break. The remaining liquid spilled everywhere. "I'm sorry," Jake said. His voice shook. "I thought it was water. I was so thirsty. I didn't mean to steal anything." The alien warrior stared at him. Her yellow eyes were wide with shock. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her 4 hands moved up to her face. Other aliens rushed into the room. They saw the spilled liquid and started making loud noises. Some sounded angry. Others sounded surprised. They all stared at Jake like he had done something terrible. The big female warrior finally spoke. Her voice was quieter now. "You drank the Velthaner in my presence while I am unbonded." Jake did not understand the words. "What does that mean?" "I just wanted some water." One of the smaller aliens started laughing. It was not a happy laugh. The human has proposed marriage to Zarethek, the Bloodcrest. By our oldest laws, they are now betrothed. Jake felt his stomach drop. Married? What? No, that's not what I meant. I just drank some water. The female warrior named Zarethek stepped closer. Jake wanted to run, but his legs would not move. She looked down at him with those glowing eyes. The Velfanner is our sacred bonding drink, she said slowly. When an unbonded male drinks it in front of an unbonded female warrior, it means he wishes to become her mate. By the ancient laws, we are now promised to each other. But I didn't know, Jake said. Can't we just forget this happened? The smaller alien shook his head. Impossible. The sacred laws cannot be broken. To refuse the bond now would bring great shame to both our peoples. It could mean war. Captain Brooks and Lisa Carter ran into the room. They had heard the commotion from the meeting. They saw Jake, standing next to the spilled bowl with aliens all around him. What happened here? Captain Brooks asked. Lisa looked at the aliens' faces. She had studied their culture a little bit. The worried looks told her this was very bad. Jake drank their sacred marriage drink, one alien explained. He is now betrothed to our greatest warrior. Captain Brooks turned pale. Lisa put her hand over her mouth in shock. Zarethek had not moved. She kept staring at Jake with an expression he could not read. Was she angry? Confused? He could not tell. This is a disaster, Captain Brooks whispered to Lisa. If we insult their warrior culture, they might attack Earth. Jake looked up at Zarethek. She was still watching him. I really didn't mean to propose marriage. I just wanted some water. I'm sorry, I ruined everything. For the first time, something changed in Zarethek's face. Her angry expression softened just a little bit. You were thirsty, she said. It was not a question. Yes, very thirsty. I've been working all day, and our water system broke. Zarethek tilted her head. You work? What is your job, small human? I grow plants, food plants, to feed everyone on the station. The other aliens whispered to each other in their own language. Jake caught some words, but could not understand them. Zarethek stepped back. A provider. Interesting. She looked at the other aliens. We will return to discuss this with the elders. The human. Jake Miller ... will remain here until we decide what must be done. As the aliens filed out of the room, Zarethek stopped. At the door, she looked back at Jake one more time. Do not fear, little provider. If the bond stands, I will not let harm come to you. That is my promise as a warrior. Then she was gone, leaving Jake alone with Captain Brooks and Lisa. The room smelled like the strange sweet drink. The empty bowl lay on its side on the floor. Jake sat down hard on the nearest chair. I think I just accidentally got engaged to the scariest alien in the galaxy. Yes, Lisa said sadly. Yes, you did,